So you have a 10-year-old girl who is in a diving competition, and she loses. Those girls were better than you, which is why you didn't win.
Well, see, that's mean, though. If you're saying, like, they're better than you, maybe they're not better than you. Maybe
they won a contest. She lost.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that they're better than you.
But she lost.
They're perhaps.
Now, one other kid in this neighborhood does chores. You're gonna get in trouble, Murtaugh.
Hey, Mom! Can we get some meatloaf?
He started it.
Mom!
What?
Shut up!
What is the matter with you?
I know it's a school night, so we're just gonna get right down to it.
You've written a handful of books about parenting.
I have. Yep.
Why?
Well, I needed the money.
Okay. But like any good parent, kids got to eat.
But they have to eat. But secondly, I was just kind of inspired to by watching dads in the beginning, how they treated their sons at soccer games. And so there were dads that were very quiet, and dads that were cheerleaders, and dads that were like angry at their kids, at their 4-year-olds, that they didn't score a goal. And I thought, well, this is odd. This needs to be talked about. So flash forward about 10 years later, and my lawyer suggested one day, well, Harry, you ought to write a book about raising boys. Your kids are incredible. And I thought, well, that's a very nice thing for him to say without me paying him $200 an hour. And then about 2 days later, my son said, Dad, you ought to write a book about raising boys. And I thought, wow, is that a compliment? So I started writing a book about raising boys.
And that was it.
The whole idea was that men don't like to read a lot about children. So I know when Melissa was pregnant, my wife, she had all these stacks of parenting books of what to do when you're 3 and 4 and 6 months. And she would look at me while I was reading like Sports Illustrated, and she'd say, you need to read these books. And I'd go, no, you're reading them. That's all right. But then surprisingly, she knew more than I did about raising kids when babies were born. So I thought, I'll write this book for dads. So that's how I'll write a book that dads can understand, that it'll be short and quick and be funny in places and charming in places and compelling in places. And the dads liked it. So that's how it all started.
But it didn't just stop at dads.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I didn't stop at dads. And then it turned out we had a lot of feedback from the bookstores that moms were looking for a book about raising boys. So I thought, okay, that's cool. So I went to interview moms. And then and another book emerged, and a book about, well, dads raise daughters. Where's that book? So I interviewed a bunch of dads whose daughters I admired and interviewed them, and that produced another book. And then Mothers and Daughters, which I didn't ever want to tackle, but I did that book. And then that led to some more books, 1001 Thing series. So it's been going on since 1998.
Well, we were deliberating what we're going to talk about if we're going to do a podcast with the great Harry H. Harrison Jr., and you seem like a guy who's into radical thinking. I don't want to say liberal per se. I don't want to put a title on it too much, but you're into doing different things, which is why we thought, let's try making a podcast. So that's what this is.
Yeah.
And I wanted to set this up. What the study is, it's determining whether or not success is determined by level of intelligence, a fixed thing, you're born with it, and you're that smart and you're going to be successful, or if it's a matter of you tried, and you tried, and you tried, and you tried. You tried harder and harder, and eventually you made it. Are you the hare, or are you the tortoise? Can you make it to the finish line despite everything against you, or are you just destined to be there? That's the question. And when you talk about soccer, you talk about kids running around the field and where other dads landed, where were you? How did you feel about all that?
Well, I was a coach.
Okay. Of course. Yeah, all right.
Of course.
Sure.
Naturally, he's the teacher.
Yeah.
He's the teacher. So, Zach, tell us a little bit more about the study.
Right. Well, the boys at the lab down at MIT put this study together. They wanted to, again, measure success on a level of intelligence versus effort. So what they did is they showed a baby. I got this all wrong. They designed an experiment in which 15-month-old babies, 15 months.
First that's about a year and a half.
About a year and a half, coming up on the terrible twos, as they call them. They first watched an adult perform 2 tasks, removing a toy frog from a container and removing a keychain from a carabiner. Half of the babies saw an adult quickly succeed at the task 3 times within 30 seconds. The other half saw the adult struggle for 30 seconds before success. So one half saw adults do it easy. It was no problem. It was a breeze. The other half saw them really struggle to accomplish it. So the experimenters then showed the baby a musical toy. Toy had a button that looked like it should turn on the toy, but it actually didn't work. A false button, Harry. This is a big start.
Life sends you those.
There was also a concealed functional button on the bottom. Out of the baby's sight, the researcher turned the toy on to demonstrate that it worked. and then turned it off and gave it to the baby. Each baby's given 2 minutes to play with the toys. The researchers recorded how many times the babies tried to press the button that seemed like it should turn the toy on.
What the baby saw was their parents struggle, and so they tried harder to get that button to work. Mm-hmm. And then the babies that saw their parents not struggle gave up after a few tries.
Right.
The babies who watched their parents struggle thought, well, this got to work eventually because I saw work worked. And
Right.
They kind of put this in their 15-month-old brains. And this is important. This is hugely important for several reasons. Like you said, a lot of people wonder, well, will my child be successful because of brains, or does he have the wherewithal to accomplish something in life? Mm-hmm. And the answer is yes, if he knows how to struggle, if he or she can develop grit, if they can develop stick-to-itiveness that helps them overcome problems. And it's important for young parents to understand it's okay to show kids that there's problems you have to struggle with. Every family has that. But so many parents today do not want to, they want their kids to think they're super parents. So they don't want to show struggle. So their kids grow up thinking, well, there's no struggle in life. Then, of course, once they hit that struggle, they fall apart because they have never been taught how to handle it.
And it's got to be a challenging thing as a parent because you want to give your kids stuff. You want to make life. Why wouldn't you? You want them to have the best thing available to them at the time. So I guess the big question is, where do you draw that line? Where do you decide, you know what? I can't help them this time. They got to figure it out on their own.
Well, this brings up another study that was reported by the Dallas Morning News, and it ties into this nicely. Lawnmower parents are raising a generation of kids who don't struggle with adversity. So parents are not letting their kids struggle at all. And it gives this example, and we've got 3 moms here. So you have a 10-year-old girl who is in a diving competition, and she loses. Mm-hmm. The parent can say 3 things when this crying girl gets in the car. Well,
is this like a test to find out whether you're a lawnmower parent? Because I'm not even sure what that means.
you'll learn.
Yeah, wait, no, I've heard, what's a lawnmower parent?
Yeah,
I've heard helicopter parenting.
What is a lawnmower
Well, this will
parent?
describe it.
Okay.
So the mother can say 3 things when this girl gets in the car.
It's like a multiple choice.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I thought you were the best of all of them.
Even though she lost.
Even though she lost.
Okay.
I mean, it's, a parent would say
Well,
that.
if you're a parent,
Okay.
Seems like you were just trying to say the word lie, but you just said parent instead.
It's okay. We'll get them next time.
Okay.
Or C, now remember, this is your 10-year-old daughter. Those girls were better than you, which is why you didn't win.
Yeah. Slow clap it. Great job, kid. Yeah.
So which one would you say?
I like option 2.
Option 2 being, well, I thought, no. Well, it's okay. We'll get them next time.
It's okay. We'll give them next time.
Probably 2. Yeah.
Probably 2. This is from Zach, our unmarried, unchild producer. Actually, it's C.
What is C?
C is, hey, they were better than you. You lost.
That should be the answer?
That's why you didn't win. Yeah.
Why?
Because it doesn't deflect, oh, it's okay, we'll get them next time. Nor does it lie or just cover it up with, well, I thought you were the best of all. Option C says you could have tried harder in practice.
But maybe they couldn't have tried harder. Maybe there's politics involved.
Right. Is there a ceiling there as far as skills involved?
Oh, see. So, lawnmower mom, you didn't know if you were one. Lawnmowers try to cut all the problems out of a child's life.
Oh, all right.
They try and remove every obstacle to happiness, which we have spoken about a lot here. So that's what a lawnmower parent is they don't want their kids to struggle. They don't want their kids to be unhappy. They will lie to them or deflect.
But
about
read
why they
option
lost.
C again. Read up.
Option C is, those girls were better than you, which is why you didn't win.
Well, see, that's mean though. If you're saying like they're better than you, they're not. Maybe they're not better
They
than
won
you. Maybe
a
they're
contest. She lost.
Yeah,
It's
but
a
that
little
doesn't
on the
mean that
nose.
they're better than
Right.
you.
But she lost.
They're perhaps
What is wrong? What am I not understanding?
perhaps they have more training or technique in that particular skill set, but it doesn't mean overall they're better than you.
Overall, they
they're
won.
not like a better person than you just because they won a competition.
So if you're wondering what a lawnmower mom is, right here is the mother of 7-month-old Will.
Okay, so Harry, I mean, you were the coach, obviously. You probably saw a lot of back and forth between kids and adults. Where did you land with your kids? Were you option C every time?
So I was the coach, so my kids would never have the coach that I became. If that makes sense.
Hold on. What? Yeah. What does that mean?
that means that I wanted to coach my kids because I didn't want them to have a screaming coach.
He didn't want, the angry coach on the field.
I didn't want the angry coach.
That the dad
became
only
that
plays
coach.
his son.
It
but
sounds
then that
like
was Harry, right?
It sounds like you were a lawnmower parent, Harry. That's what that sounds like.
Not
You
so
were
much.
protecting your kids from that adverse.
Oh no, I
thing.
didn't protect them.
Did you always
I
play-
screamed at them.
Okay, you filled in. I got it. Yeah.
I was a dynamite
If
parent.
anybody's gonna yell at my kids, it's gonna be me.
Did you always play your kid? Did they always get to play?
That
Did you
was the
ever
whole
bench
purpose
them?
of me coaching.
Exactly. So that's a bad. That's
but-
you became the coach that you don't
But
want to be.
They were the best players.
All right.
They were the best players.
Sure they were.
Well, my oldest son was hands down the best player on the team, and my youngest son was maybe the second best. A girl was better. So she was the best, and
But she was a girl, so she didn't get to play.
Right. Yeah. That's what.
she was a girl. So of course, a 4-year-old girl has better dexterity than a 4-year-old
Sure.
boy.
That makes sense.
Common sense. In fact, she won a scholarship to UT to play soccer. I just always regarded myself as that kind of coach.
So let's step back to our study for a second that we started with. 15 months old. Yeah, I mean, you said before I don't have a kid. I'm
Right.
kidless, right? What's going on at 15 months developmentally? I mean, your kid's not walking.
I will
right?
tell you.
I don't know.
Yes, you're walking.
Okay, see, I don't.
You start walking around age 1. So at 15
Right.
months, you're 1.5. You're walking, and you're starting to be in a period of rapid succession with language progression. So your language is like exploding, and you're about to start talking in like sentences.
Right.
So you're starting to put like words together, more fluidly and
In concepts together.
Okay.
And really, up to about the age of 3, maybe 3 or 4, you're done as a parent. They will have absorbed all your
That's it.
values, all your morals. They will become the kids at 16 that you raised at 4.
Really?
Yeah. And if you have it, once you start having children, you will see this. Is that you will see this in other people's kids. And when I had a partner one time who I knew when this kid turned 4, he was going to be a disaster for a long time, and he was. His parents let him get away with murder. I knew I had another dad whose son at 4. I met him, and I came and told Melissa, this kid's going to jail one day. He was 4. So yeah, the heavy lifting of parenting is done the first 4 years.
Yeah, so like even right now, Will's in that 6 to 7 month age range. And, I'm always reading kind of the parenting blogs and things that they're saying about the milestones that your kids are reaching. And they say right now, he's like an emotional sponge. So they're like, be very careful about the interactions that you have around your child, because right now they're watching you and they're paying attention to your emotions and they're learning empathy. So right now at Will's stage, like he's in that stage where if another baby's crying, he might start crying because that other baby is crying. Or if another baby is laughing, he'll mimic the laughter just because he's learning empathy. And so they're very much watching you. And so they say, like, as parents, you should be careful of the interactions you're having around your infant, because like if you're fighting around them, they're seeing that and they're soaking it in right now.
Oh, he's learning how to fit in. That's cute.
It's really astounding. A lot of parents don't understand the gigantic importance of the first 3 or 4 years. They think, well, he's just a baby or she's just a baby. She won't miss me.
I hate to say that's where I'd be, but that's exactly where I'd be. Like, it's fine. They're like a year old. They don't know any better.
They don't know any better, right? And I don't have to be around them that much. I can go travel and come home every now and then. And then after they turn 6, I'll be in their life. The problem is that everything you wanted them to be, you had to have taught them by the age of 4. You had to mirror the actions and the language that you wanted for them to walk away with. And if they haven't learned it by then, I mean, they're going to be at 18 the kids they were at 4. And it's hard to wrap your mind around, but as a parent, you'll see it.
So before we get too far into it, how big is that window when your kid just doesn't know any better and they're just like, yeah,
Probably
almost like a bug on a wall. They just kind of
I mean,
exist,
I mean, Will is
They haven't
7
started
months. Kids at 4 are. I would think. Actually, I want to shorten that window. I'm going to shorten it to 3 years. I'm going to shorten it to 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah, because by the time they're 4,
They're starting school.
they're starting school.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
They're either.
Preschool, yeah.
I mean, they've got in their brain everything they've learned, and their brain is there. I mean, it's there. The
Right.
brain will continue to grow and add, lobes and all that stuff. But internally, they're there at 4. The point being is that it's a mistake to think the first 2, 3, 4 years don't mean anything. They mean everything. They mean
Right.
absolutely everything to the development of your child, to the moral development, to social development. They mean everything.
Right. And I think that's one of the things that was really kind of drawn out of this study, that these 15-month-olds weren't exactly given the same exercises. They weren't given, a key on a carabiner. They were given a musical toy.
Right.
It was a different device, but they still struggled with it the same way their parents did, mimicking them, like you had said previously.
Right. And they saw, so babies see their parents struggle. They see
Right.
their parents not be successful, try, not be successful again, try, not be successful again, try, and then they're successful. Okay, so that teaches them that you're not going to get it right the first time or the second time or maybe even the third time. And you think about how that has ramifications down the road. If they are like writing a college paper and they do the first draft, they think, well, this is fine, and they think, well, maybe I should try harder. And so by the 10th draft, they have something they can turn in.
Mm-hmm.
So they have struggled with this. They've wrestled with it. They've gone and talked to the professor. They've done the research. They've really tried to make this paper better than the first draft. They're going to do very well. People that write at the first draft say, well, it's done. I'm fine. And they fail, and they go, I don't know what happened. I tried hard.
So
I'd be interested to know like how many college students right now do more than one draft.
Oh, gosh.
Like I think they don't.
I think an entire country 6.
Unless it's part of the assignment, like you have to turn in a draft.
Right?
And, yeah.
Like I don't know that's really happening
even
anymore.
reading. I mean, I learned my freshman year the value of rereading a chapter.
Right.
And rereading it again. And this was after the semester that I made like a 1.3. When I thought, well, I could do better. I just need to try harder.
Right.
So, and it all has to do with not being risk adverse, but being prepared to take risks, to stay with it, and to stay with it till it's done. That's how companies are created.
So how'd you do it with your kids? I know we talked about this not that long ago, and you talked about how you used to, you should show kids that life's tough sometimes. Yeah, sometimes you got to keep the lights on.
Right.
Yeah. So how was that with you?
Have you had like a personal experience like this where your kids were allowed to see you struggle, or you allowed them to?
Yeah. So I forget how old my kids were, but I live in a nice place now, but life hasn't always been just peaches and cream like anybody's. So we went through a period of real financial hardship, and my wife and I could have chosen one of two ways. Well, let's just hide it, and or we could sit down with them, even though they were young, and say, okay, look, right now your dad isn't making a lot of money, so we're going to have to cut back on a lot of things. And they understood what we were talking about.
How old were they at the time?
I'm going to peg it at 14 and 12.
So I had a cousin who had a similar situation, and they, her children, they were experiencing a financial hardship. This was like in 2008 when the housing crisis happened, and their house was being foreclosed on. And so they had to tell their children. And I think her oldest daughter was about 12 at the time. And they chose to have that conversation with their kids. But, some of my other family members were like aghast that they would be, telling their children this. And I think a lot of families are that way when it comes to finances. They think it should very much stay in the adult realm and not be something that's discussed with the children.
That is absolutely true. That's absolutely true. Mm-hmm. And that causes real problems down the road. So kids are saying, well, why can't I buy this today? Mm-hmm. Why do I have to put this off? And a parent, instead of saying, well, we can't afford it right now, they'll make up all kinds of reasons.
Yeah.
And the thing is that before I had my own company and we were doing growing like a rocket, and then the bottom fell out, and then so our lifestyle, we didn't have to move, but we had to cut way back on a lot of things to stay in our house. And so the boys saw me struggle, but I told them I will be fine. Mm-hmm. This isn't going to be forever. This is just something I have to work out and work my way through. And so they both knew that. So they both saw me struggle for about a year to put things back together. And so for them, it's only natural to, if you encounter a serious problem, to work your way through it. I mean, both of them have. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the value. Even so many parents, like Kristen said, are reluctant to talk about financial hardship.
Yeah, why do you think specifically with finances that
God,
is?
I think it's because parents measure their worth in finances. I think it's that you want to keep the illusion that you're wildly successful and you can buy your kids anything. And this is why MasterCard bills are so high.
Yeah.
It's because parents, instead of admitting, hey, we can't afford that, their kid cries, and instead of moving on, they whip out the MasterCard and buy $800 game sets and stuff.
Well, and Christmas is right around the corner.
Christmas is right around the corner. Oh my gosh, yes.
So what are we going to be seeing with parents,
right.
and
there's
that
kind
happening?
of competition among parents too. Well, did you get your son this, or did you get your daughter this? So it is very interesting, but the financial well-being of a family is the last thing parents want to have discussions about, because they want to keep the myth that their father is this great provider and keep the myth that their mother has everything under control.
Right, that they can call their shot, that every day when they leave, they're getting something done. They're accomplishing something and providing for the family. I can understand
Well, you
that.
bring up an interesting point. Like, I think as children, we're still kind of children. We're still growing up, and we still have parents that we look to. Up into a certain age, you always see your parents as, like role models or this thing greater than you. And then, maybe when you're in your mid-20s or 30s, you start to see them as people,
Right.
as more of your peers rather than, someone to aspire to be. And you sort of have that reality check of they're human. And do you think that's important? Like, do you think that we should be showing that humanness to our children younger?
The vulnerability.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that it's hard for parents to do that, because they want to. They parents believe that if they can maintain this mount on high standard with their kids, that, oh my God, I'll never be like dad or mom. That it's better. They'll have an easier time parenting them and an easier time earning their respect. When the reality is, if your kids see you struggle through a problem or struggle through a number of problems and come out on the other end, and actually it doesn't even matter if you come out on the other end or not, because you think of how many people talk about their moms who held 3 jobs to get them through school and stuff. As they grow up, kids really respect the parent that worked at it, that overcame. And you're teaching your son or your daughter, you can overcome this with grit and determination. You can overcome anything. So I think my boys seeing me struggle, well, I know it went into their consciousness. Okay, Dad isn't. I don't think it even occurred to them. I think that most parents think, well, they'll think less of me. You're their father. You're the mother. They're not going to think less of you. They just now understand what you're worried about. They just now understand why you're saying no. And that's just a false assumption kids have, that parents have, that if they don't think I'm the ultimate provider, they will have less respect for me. They will have less respect for you if you're drinking and drugging and, dragging strange men or women home at night. But they won't think less of you for having to work.
I know we've only got a few minutes left, but I wanted to ask before we kind of wrap things up. When you talk about struggling, what I think of is frustration. You don't want to show yourself frustrated in front of your kids, right? Or do you? Like, where's that line? Because you don't want to.
What's wrong with frustration?
I mean, you don't want to go too far. Like, I would argue sometimes dads go too far.
He has no dog in this hunt. No, you're going to show frustration.
I think frustration is normal.
Depends on how frustrating.
Yeah, you can
like
show
if you're throwing something at a wall, you've gone too far.
Well, that's a tantrum. That's not frustration, right?
You're going to have frustration just raising them, just getting them into the bathtub. Just having them quit beating on their brother.
I think it would be impossible not to show a toddler frustration.
Right? Oh my God.
Like, because you're dealing with it on a daily basis.
Right. But is that okay?
Yeah.
I guess it is.
It's totally okay.
Every child experiences their parents.
Yeah. When a kid struggles to walk and they pull themselves up and they fall down. And they pull themselves up. This goes on for a month or two, where they are struggling to walk, and they get it eventually without our help. We're always there to hold their hand and stuff, but when that child finds his balance, he's gone. And you don't have to encourage a baby to stand up. it's their natural drive to stand up and walk. So they're going to get frustrated, and they'll sit down and cry that they can't do it, and then you tell them to get moving and start over again.
So Will's working on, trying to figure out how to learn to crawl right now. And so he has to do tummy time every day. And he hates it. He absolutely hates it. But we have to do it for him. Otherwise, he's not going to figure it out. So we have to put him on his stomach, and he'll sit there, and he'll kick his legs, and he'll kick his arms, and he'll do it for 5 or 10 minutes. And then he'll start, screaming. And you just have to kind of let him figure it out. And then he'll get tired. And then he'll try again,
Right.
But that's the way that they learn how to crawl, is they have to practice their tummy time. And so you see him dealing with frustration right now. He gets frustrated, very frustrated.
So parents shouldn't be too afraid to be a little frustrated
No.
with their kids.
No.
All right.
I mean, you don't go off and wail them, but it's normal to be frustrated as a human being, as a child, until you get it, until you do what you want to do. So babies face frustration every day just learning to walk, then learning to ride a bike.
Going back to the study, one of the interesting things I thought was a part of it was if the parent was, taking the key off the key ring and it was easy for them and they handed it to the baby and the baby just tried and couldn't figure it out, they would hand it back to the parent.
Mm-hmm.
As to say, I can't do it, but you can. You
Right.
can.
Help me out,
assist me. Yeah.
So it's all about teaching our kids that they can't do it, but mom can. So as they grow up, I can't do it, but mom can.
Right. And are you teaching them to use the resources available to accomplish something efficiently, or are you teaching them just let the parents do it? And unfortunately, it's probably more of the latter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think it ends up being the child is just then, I don't know how to cut my steak. Mom always did it for me. So then they can't do anything.
right. They can't do anything because mom always did it.
Yeah.
So here we got a couple minutes left. What are the takeaways here? What have we learned?
Well, I think the important takeaways are, one, it's okay for your child to struggle. Absolutely okay. You don't want to take that away from them. It's okay to say you lost because you weren't as good. Maybe with a little practice, you'll be better. It's important for kids to see their parents struggle, because that teaches them that oh gosh, my parent is struggling, then maybe it's okay if I struggle. We shouldn't hide the struggle from our kids. That's just part of life. And again, my purpose is to raise kids to face the adult world. And they can't face the adult world if they've never developed grit, if they've never struggled in their lives, if they have no idea what to do when they didn't get the job, or they didn't win the contest, or they didn't make the grade they needed to make. And one of the keys to succeeding in adulthood is developing grit. And learning struggle's okay. Failure is okay. That's perfectly okay. Most people failed at 2 or 3 things in their life before they're successful. It's important to teach your child, that life is a risk. A life that you'll enjoy. Things may not work out. Okay, you get up next day and try something different. And if we keep them sheltered, they won't believe that. So, it's been a fast 30 minutes.
Yeah.
This is a subject that we will talk about and talk about and talk about. Love being here with Kristen and Zach. For more information, go to my website, fearlessparenting.com. Check out my blog, and tell your friends all about us.
And thank you so much for joining us. This episode was brought to you by Harry H. Harrison Jr.'s Book of the Week. This week, we're featuring 1001 Things Every College Student Needs to Know. So you can pick it up anywhere books are sold, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Check it out and make sure to stay tuned.
That is a great book. It's a great book.
It's a good read, huh? Will They Ever Leave is a production of the Real News Communications Network in collaboration with Harry H. Harrison Jr. This episode was recorded and edited by Matt Stoker and myself, Zach Lewis. Production music courtesy of the Audio Jungle Music Library. To find out more about Harry and his work, or to purchase one of his books, visit www.fearlessparenting.com.
listening to RMCN, the digital destination for premium talk radio.